What's up, you guys? It's Noah from Sounds Good, and today we are going to be talking about ear candy. Let's start out by talking about what ear candy is. Ear candy is just any sound that lends interest to your track. Now, this could be risers, impacts, glitches, vocals, anything outside the realm of what an instrument could be. Now, in the context of EDM and bass music, ear candy is best known as like those little glitches or cool intermittent sounds that sometimes happen in the gaps or spaces in between a track. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're not going to be talking about constructing your own. We'll cover that in another video. But in this particular video, I'm going to show you guys what I did for this demo track and sort of walk you through the process and how you could sort of implement this in your own track. So let's get the headphones on. So you guys remember this particular beat from last week? All right, and now I'm going to play this thing without any of this ear candy. Listen how boring this thing is. But you guys can see that without these sounds, there's really not a lot of interest. So we want to add these in very specific places, and you could sort of see that these are all in very similar spots. And that's because I'm sort of counterbalancing this with the rhythm. So let's start out with just the first sound. First sound right here. It sounds like this. It's sidechain there, so that's why it doesn't have that sort of impact. It's a little bit offbeat, but that's what I was hearing in my head, and that's what I wanted to address first, is you want to try to listen for where ear candy can be placed in your track. If you play it through blank before you add in all this ear candy, you could really start to hear in your head where you think stuff should go. Try to beatbox with it. And that's what I normally do. So when I set this in, and initially I didn't even have it right here. I had it right there on the snare. After messing around and tweaking it a little bit, I realized that my initial instinct was right to put it in this general area, but slightly off beat lend itself better to the rhythm. And I mean, that is something that you can't really learn in a YouTube video. I can't really teach you guys to have a good ear. That just comes from listening to a lot of different music, right? You want to listen to a lot, pull ideas and inspiration from other places, and experiment a bunch. So let's move on to the next sound here. So this is a combination. I have this sound, which is like a laser sound I made for this sample pack. And then I have this zap sound from a cymatics pack. And then I have this sound down here, which is another lasery sound that I just stretched. So all of these together. Oh, and I also have this guy down here, which I think is... It's just sort of like an 8-bit bleep, but I have this reverb set on it, so it rings out in the atmosphere after that. So all of these together now, you can hear... If you sort of want the guardrails up, you know, like those lanes in a bowling alley when you don't want to throw any strikes, you put them up so you can't throw any strikes. Just turn on the grid. And if your grid is too small, like it's whatever you're doing doesn't sound right, just try expanding the grid. Expand the grid until you need it to be smaller to make those fine-tuned adjustments. But yeah, you adjust the grid by pressing Command 1 or Command 2 if you're a beginner. Or you could do it the old school way. Some people still do it this way, and I don't understand. So you might be asking yourself, like, how I decide on these sounds to use. And that's really a two-part question. One, again, it's about knowing what would sound good in the context of being inspired from other music, or maybe you just have this idea out of nowhere. Oh, it would be really cool to have, like, this type of sound in there, and there's an example of that later in this track that I'll show you guys. And then two, knowing your sample library. If you use Splice is a great resource for this. They allow you to sort through your samples in a really detailed way, so you can type in keywords, type in the category of sound, and go through until you find some. Those two in conjunction will give you guys ideas for what types of sounds to put in as ear candy, just like this. So the next one I have over here is just a bass sound. So you don't have to always use these crazy glitchy sound effects. You could use actual bass sounds too. This is a bass sound I made. I think this is a Virtual Riot. And then I think we have that walkie, or that, no, it's like that chime thing again. Oh, these are cool. So remember I was telling you guys, like, maybe you just get an idea of something to use in a song. This, I decided, I was like, oh, it would be kind of cool, like, have like a Walkie Talkie sound. So I just searched for a Walkie Talkie sound. This is what I found. And then I wanted to have that little chirp that it does. So I grabbed this guy here. That's the original sound. But I pitched it down a bunch, and then I made sure that it was in tune with the song. And so I combined them both together. And then we have just another bass sound over here. And then a zap. So, one last time. So those are for the fills, but then there's another element to ear candy that you want to add in there. This is such an easy trick to do, and it will instantly improve your tracks almost every time. I know it's like a super clickbaity thing to say, but it really is this easy, especially when you use something like Splice. So this guy down here, you can find samples like this in Splice, or just make them yourself using a vocal if you don't want to use Splice, or you don't even have to use a vocal. Just anything that will give you that tone aspect, and if you bring it down enough to where it's not this overwhelming presence, I'm gonna add this and take it away. This is basically just adding atmosphere to this track. So I'll play it and I'll just turn it on and off as we're playing it, and you guys can hear that it really makes a big difference. You can hear how dry and like focused and centered the track is without it. But when we add this really quiet element in the background, it gives the track some depth. So I hope you guys learned something about ear candy today. Thanks for watching. We will see you guys next week. So I bumped the microphone. My bad. See you next week.